Hello everyone and welcome back to another wonderful video on your YouTube channel. There are a lot of situations in which we want to say in English, hey, you're making it worse, you make the situation worse. What you're saying is making the situation worse. What you will do will make the situation worse. Something will make the situation worse. But instead of saying you're making the situation worse, are there any advanced alternatives that we can use to take your English to the next level and sound more advanced? Well, let me think. The answer is yes, which is why you're watching today's video. I'm going to be providing you with some beautiful English idioms and phrases that you can say to emphasize that someone is making the situation worse. Let's get started, but before we do so, make sure that you watch this video to the very end. Like this video in support of this channel, and thank you for doing so, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Now let's get started. The first English phrase that we can use to say someone is making a situation much worse is to add fuel to the fire. 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 What is the meaning of adding fuel to the fire? Well, what happens, guys, when you add fuel to the fire? The fire is burning. Then when you add fuel to the fire, it starts blazing, right? The fire starts blazing. The fire gets even worse. So when we say you're adding fuel to the fire, what we're trying to emphasize is the fact that what you're doing, what you're saying, your behavior is making the situation much, much worse. So to add fuel to the fire means to make a situation much, much worse than what it is. Let me give you an example of this beautiful expression used in an English sentence. After their argument, she told him about her plans to move, which added fuel to the fire. After their argument, she told him about her plans to move, which added fuel to the fire. After their argument, she told him about her plans to move, which added fuel to the fire. Which means, after their argument, she told him about her plans to move, which made the situation much worse and way more complicated than she thought it would get. So, after their argument, she told him about her plan to move, which added fuel to the fire. Guys, I have a question for you. Have you ever done or said something that added fuel to the fire in a certain situation? What was it that you did or said that did so? I want you to comment it down below. And what happened afterwards? How did you manage the situation afterwards to change it for the better? I want you to comment them all down below. The next English phrase that we can use to emphasize that you're making a situation much worse, which is pretty similar to adding fuel to the fire, is to throw gasoline on the fire. To throw gasoline on the fire. To throw gasoline on the fire. Guys, what do you think happens when you throw gasoline on the fire? It's exactly similar to adding fuel to the fire. When you add fuel to the fire, or when you throw gasoline on the fire, what happens is that you're making a situation much worse, much more complicated and confusing than it already is. So, to throw gasoline on the fire. An example: his rude comments during the meeting threw gasoline on the fire, making tensions rise even higher. His rude comments during the meeting threw gasoline on the fire, making tensions rise even higher. His rude comments during the meeting threw gasoline on the fire, making tensions rise even higher, which means his rude comments added fuel to the fire, threw gasoline on the fire, or made the situation much worse and made tensions rise even higher. So, to throw gasoline on the fire or to add fuel to the fire, they both refer to the same idea, the idea of making a situation much worse. Now let's move on to the next beautiful English phrase that you can use to say that you're making a situation worse, which is to rub salt into the wound. 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 What exactly do you think will happen if you rub salt into the wound? Well, it hurts more, right? It will cause a lot of pain. When you rub salt into the wound, it causes a lot of pain, right? So when you rub salt into the wound, what you do is you make a situation much worse than it already is. You make a situation way more complicated. You make a situation much, much, much worse. So to rub salt into the wound. Let me give you an example. After losing the match, her friend reminded her of the last time they played, which rubbed salt into the wound. After losing the match, her friend reminded her of the last time they played, which rubbed salt into the wound. After losing the match, her friend reminded her of the last time they played, which rubbed salt into the wound. Which means after losing the match, her friend reminded her of the last time that they played, which was nothing short of making the situation worse, which was nothing short of reminding her of an unpleasant past event that she can do nothing about now, or which was nothing short of adding fuel to the fire, or throwing gasoline on the fire, or making the situation much worse, reminding her of something that, she was not able to do anything about to change for the better. The next English phrase that you can use to emphasize that you're making a situation much worse is to add insult to injury. To add insult to injury. To add insult to injury. Add insult to injury. To add insult to injury. When you add insult to injury, you add fuel to the fire. You throw gasoline on the fire. You rub salt into the wound. You make a situation much worse. You do something or say something that doesn't solve the problems, doesn't change the situation for the better, doesn't help the situation, but rather makes the situation even worse, far worse than it was or it is. An example. He not only failed the test, but to add insult to injury, his teacher mocked him in front of the class. He not only failed the test, but to add insult to injury, his teacher mocked him in front of the class. He not only failed the test, but to add insult to injury, his teacher mocked him in front of the class, which means not only did he fail his test, not only did he do badly on his test, but also to make the situation even worse, to make it even more unpleasant for him, to make him even angrier, or to make him even more unhappy, his teacher mocked him, made fun of him in front of the class, in front of everyone in the class. Now we're moving on to the next English phrase that you can use to emphasize that you're making a situation much worse. You're making a situation much more annoying. You're making a situation much more unpleasant. You're making a situation much more painful, excruciating, unpleasant, annoying, and intolerable or unbearable, which is to turn the knife in the wound. 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 Guys, what do you guess will happen when you turn the knife in the wound? Imagine a knife which is in a wound. What do you think will happen if you turn this knife inside someone's wound? Well, it makes the area more painful, right? It causes more pain. It leads to more pain. It makes the person suffer more. And it provides a much more unpleasant experience than the unpleasant experience of the knife being in the wound, right? So when you turn the knife in the wound, you make a situation much more unpleasant, much more unbearable, much more difficult, much more complicated, much worse, much more annoying, much more intolerable and painful. So to turn the knife in the wound. Let me give you an example. When he revealed her secret right after she got fired, it felt like turning the knife in the wound. When he revealed her secret right after she got fired, it felt like turning the knife in the wound. When she revealed her secret right after she got fired, it felt like turning the knife in the wound. When he revealed her secret right after she got fired, it felt like turning the knife in the wound. When he revealed her secret right after she got fired, it felt like turning the knife in the wound, which means when he revealed her secret immediately after she got fired, it was like making the situation much worse for her. It was like making the experience much more unpleasant, much more unbearable, much more difficult, much more intolerable, much more painful for her. So, it felt like turning the knife in the wound. And now we're getting to the last idiomatic expression of today's video that you can use to emphasize that someone is making a situation much, much worse, much more unpleasant, painful, and difficult, which is to dig the hole deeper, to dig the hole deeper, to dig the hole deeper, to dig the hole deeper. Guys, what do you think will happen if you dig a hole deeper? When you dig a hole deeper, it is actually deeper and it is far more dangerous. It is far riskier. It is much more annoying because it's risky and dangerous. It's much more unpleasant because it's annoying. It's painful and difficult. So, to dig the hole deeper means to make a situation much more difficult, much worse, much more complicated, much more unpleasant, unbearable, and intolerable. Let me give you an example. Every time she tried to explain herself, she dug the hole deeper and made things more confusing. Which means every time she tried to explain herself, she only complicated matters further, she just made the situation much worse and made things more confusing. And that's about it, guys. In today's video, you'll learn some beautiful English expressions that you can use and take advantage of to say that you make a situation much worse. Let's review them quickly together. To add fuel to the fire. To add fuel to the fire. To throw gasoline on the fire. To throw gasoline on the fire. To rub salt into the wound. To rub salt into the wound. To add insult to injury. To add insult to injury. To turn the knife in the wound. To turn the knife in the wound. To dig the hole deeper. To dig the hole deeper. Now what I kindly want you to do is like this video in support of this channel, subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and leave a comment down below by telling me from which country you're watching these videos. I'll be back soon.